But if you also want to listen to the rest of the show, the bumper edition, click in the card above our heads, or you can download in the most audio platforms below the show. But for the rest of the people watching on YouTube, you can watch our bite-sized reviews, and we'll be taking your clips and a lot of questions in this second half of this show from some familiar faces that we spoke to over this season. And once again, this episode is sponsored by OneFootball, and do make sure you check out the excellent free OneFootball app to keep up to date, the first to know of all the latest transfer news, stats, scores, all in one place. To download the OneFootball app, click the link in the description. Okay, so moving on then to... actually, we'll start this next award by a question put towards us by Jack over on Twitter. Who do you think is the most underrated player of the season? Or we could twist it as the unsung hero of the season. So we've got 2 nominees coming up from the Saints View and Luke from Reed Southampton.
A player who I feel has gone a little bit under the radar and hasn't really gotten the appreciation that he deserves this season is Yannik Vestergaard. Now, obviously, he came in relatively big price tag, but I think every fan was quite interested in him only because he's so big, 6'7" centre back. You thought that he'd be a fantastic presence at the back. Cue August, and then his start to his Southampton career for the first month was pretty horrendous. Didn't look like he could jump. He put in the occasional tackle, but under Hughes he was just dreadful. But he got dropped, came back in eventually towards the end of Hughes's reign, had a few okay performances, but still we were in a big mess. But I think you fast forward a couple months, sort of from January onwards to the end of the season, he's been fantastic. Along with Bednarek, you know, Vestergaard's managed to start actually jumping and heading the ball, which he's supposed to be doing. And obviously Bednarek can put a foot in. So, you know, fans saying that we need a new first choice centre-back, I partially agree. But for me, I think if we start the season with a fit Bednarek and a fit Vestergaard, we'll be all right. We've seen it already. I think we will be all right. I'd go for a centre-back in terms of backup. But, you know, we've been so shaky towards the end of the season, these last, 3, 4, even 5 games when we haven't won. And Vestergaard's been out of the team with that injury. And you maybe wonder why the defence has looked quite shaky. I think he's a underrated presence.
For me, Southampton's most underrated player this season and the unsung hero is Yannik Vestergaard. He came in as the most expensive defender in Saints' history for 18 million after joining from Borussia Mönchengladbach in the summer, so expectation was quite high. The first half of the season wasn't particularly brilliant for him. Under Mark Hughes, he was in and out of the team because Wesley Hoot was inexplicably being picked still, and he was struggling to really adapt to the pace of the Premier League. Now, under Hasenhuttl in his first game in charge, he made a catastrophic error against Cardiff, which led to Callum Patterson going through and slotting past Alex McCarthy to make it 1-0. But from that moment, it appeared as though his Saints career turned around, and Hasenhuttl's put the faith in him, and he's put the trust in him, and he's continued to kick on. In my opinion, it speaks volumes that in the final 5 games of the season, Saints conceded 11 goals. It's no coincidence that in that 5-game period, Vestergaard wasn't in the team. Now, a counter-argument to that could be that that's because Jack Stephens was starting, but for me, it's because Vestergaard is perhaps more influential than Southampton fans as a collective give him credit for. Jan Bednarek, his defensive partner, has taken plenty of the admiration and the plaudits from the club supporters, but I'd actually argue that Vestergaard's been on a similar level. He's by no means the finished product, and there is still work to be done. We all know he's still capable of an error, and his lack of pace is perhaps an issue. But I think that he's got the makings of a good centre-back, and I think that it was a solid first season in the Premier League. So for me, he's my unsung hero.
So both nominations then for Yannik Vestergaard. You know, actually we're very similar opinions there, actually, well spoken by Dan and Luke. Both picking up on that he had a really sort of poor start to his first campaign in the Premier League, really sort of struggling to adapt to the pace, it could be said, but really sort of kicking on towards the end of the season, and his omission or his absence at the end of the season was really quite noticeable, with us sort of conceding, as Luke said, 11 goals in the last few games.
Yeah, we certainly did miss him at the end, and there was an understanding, I think, with Jan Bednarek that was starting to really prosper, and that's what you need, little partnerships all around the park. And I agree what Dan and Luke say there, that Vestergaard is probably the most underrated, because I think at one point we were all thinking, oh, this guy, what? There's another £20 million down the pan. But no, it's not. It's not. This guy looks good. He's got heart. He's got desire. And the one thing we want to see him do, score a couple of goals.
Yeah.
Because at that size, with the size that he is, you're thinking, and with the delivery you've got from James Ward-Prowse, you're thinking, come on, stick it on his bonce. He's got to get 3 or 4 a season.
Yeah.
And 3 or 4 a season could be invaluable. There's one other player that I would like to mention who I think has come completely out of the blue, and that's Josh Sims.
Right.
And I think Josh Sims has done it in bits and pieces, very small bits and pieces, but very vital bits and pieces. If you think that lad, and I watched him because I've always rated the lad, and when he went to Reading, I was so disappointed. I think, oh God, at least he'd be a backup for if things went wrong with Charlie and Ingsy and everything like that. At least and Shane, at least there's something else that we can bring on the park, something different to scare defences. And my God, he came up with the most amazing performance of the season against Tottenham. And
He only played 45 minutes.
he only played 45 minutes.
And was voted BBC Man of the Match.
Voted man of the match, and rightly so. We just need him to do it more regularly, But fair play to the lad. He's had a horrible knee injury. He's been bombed out to Reading. He looked awful at Reading. I saw him in a couple of games there on the telly. Obviously, you don't get the full view, but he looked like his head was down. He was like, "Oh God, what am I doing here?" And I thought, "What's he doing there?" So I'd like to give him a mention at least. Maybe not the most underrated. I think Dan and Luke again have nailed it there, and Vestergaard has come from being somebody that we thought, oh, there's a waste of 20 million, to saying, actually, this lad can be with us for a few years and can be a major asset to Saints.
And I want to pick up actually on the comment you said just a minute ago. Actually, he is 6'7", the tallest. Apart from Peter Crouch from signing in January, he was the tallest in outfield player on the pitch. In the entire Premier League. And what it is, we're not actually using his height to our advantage. I don't remember actually scoring headers this season. In fact, when
season lately,
when we lost Font and Van Dijk, we lost the aerial threat.
But we should have it.
And we've also seen clips and training clips that Vestergaard smashes in these free kicks from sort of 30, 40 yards. He's got the technique to do so.
Yeah. I mean, you've got Bednarek in that category, but as a lad who's just played in the World Cup, is he underrated? He had a fantastic World Cup. Really good, really solid, and he looked the part. So I expected him to start the season, and I think he's come in and done really, really well. Some of his blocks have been exceptional. I think with Jan Bednarek, it's like they say about referees. The good referees are the ones you don't notice.
Yeah.
And you don't notice Jan making big mistakes. I'm not so sure about the zonal marking from free kicks and corners when we're defending, but that's the one area I'm a little bit uneasy with. But some of his blocks have been truly outstanding.
So the award then goes to our 6'7" strapping Danish centre half with long, flowing blonde hair, Yannik Vestergaard.
Or as the super fan to my left saying, Yannik Vestergaard. I hope there's a better song, lads. Come on, there's got to be something better.
Well, he is now, in fact, our unsung hero of the season. So it's your duty then, Saints fans, to make up a song for him into next season.
And I bet it's got something with Hate Pompey in it.